why we should use them, and then the main part will be looking at how we can utilize them in the classroom. But before we do any of that, I have one question I would like to ask you. And if you can answer this in the chat box, that would be wonderful. And it's this: what, in your view, in your opinion, is the purpose of 21st century education? So we're not just thinking English language here, we're thinking about education as a whole. What is the role of a teacher? So imagine one of your friends who's a non-teacher says to you, what is the role of education? What is the purpose? How would you answer that question? Please pop your answers in the chat box for me. Okay, certain answers to develop critical thinking. Certainly that's part of it for sure. Show the right sources. Yeah, good, Elisabetta. Thank you as well, Svetlana. To help them to find his or her place in life. Lovely, Galina. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's really important. Part of that. Any other suggestions? What is the purpose of 21st century education? And I should say there's no right or wrong answer here necessarily. It's just, you know, having your own viewpoints on these matters. Personalizations, skills for life, skills for education. Thank you, Yelena. And I agree with that. The kind of quote that I kind of came up with that kind of sums up all of that is this one. It's about giving students a set of skills, abilities, and knowledge that they need to succeed in learning, work, and life within the information age. So it's like I said earlier, it's just preparing them for life beyond the classroom. So it's trying to make those connections, that meaningfulness between what we are teaching and how they're going to use that outside of the classroom. So let's turn our attention then to this idea of those skills, and specifically the cognitive skills, the thinking skills that our learners need. Because very often they get to a sort of stage in their educational life where they are required to think for themselves, to have views, to have opinions, to look at things beyond just the surface. And that can be difficult for some students because maybe it's not how they've been taught throughout their educational experience. Therefore, we need to try to get this into our students as much as possible. And we can do that using visible thinking routines. So what are these? Well, very simply, they are the product of a research project from the Harvard Graduate School of Education in the United States. And it was tagged under the name of Project Zero, which sounds like some kind of, I don't know, exploratory NASA type project, right? Or some kind of spy project, Project Zero, top secret, but it's not. It's an organization whose mission is essentially to understand and enhance learning, thinking, and creativity for students. And what they are a number of mini strategies that enable, that guide students through the thought process. And straight from the website, yeah, short, easy to use mini strategies that extend and deepen students' thinking and become part of the structure of everyday classroom life. So the things that should be done, the clues in the name, routine, on a regular basis, because the more that you do it with the students, the more familiar they get with that routine. And certainly I should say it's a very broad and flexible framework that can enrich classroom learning and content areas while fostering that development, that cognitive development of the students at the same time. So going a little bit deeper about that then, you know, what is it actually trying to do? It's trying to develop certain thinking dispositions or habits of mind that need to be developed. So things that students need in everyday life, not just English language teaching, but learning in general. So it's teaching them to observe more closely, rather than just looking at the surface. What else is there that I can talk about, that I can describe? It's about building explanations and interpretations. So it's not just saying why I like, or not saying what, but it's saying why. It's not I like this type of TV show. Well, why? Explain it. Giving reasoning with evidence, supporting what you say with evidence. It's about making connections between what you've read, what you've watched, and your life and the world. But it's also about considering different viewpoints and perspectives. Just because we view something in one way does not mean that other people view it in the same way. So it's opening that mind to different viewpoints, different perspectives, and being accepting of those. And that's really important in a global society where we are interacting with people from all different walks of life, different cultures, different countries. It's also about capturing the heart and forming conclusions. And really at the heart of all that is this idea of wondering and asking questions. All too often in the educational processes, students are expected to answer questions, when actually it may be more fruitful if we encourage them to ask more questions, give them that confidence. And then finally, it's about uncovering complexity, going below the surface of things. In other words, thinking more critically as well. So that's really quickly what they are. Why? Why should we incorporate them? We've kind of touched on this already, but essentially it's to help students make their ideas more visible, more accessible to the classmates, but also to the teacher, so that we can see how they are actually thinking about things. You know, and like I say, it promotes a deeper understanding of content. And, you know, I'm a big believer in that, you know, children they need to be taught how to think, not what to think. Okay, so it's kind of a double-edged sword in that respect. But certainly, you know, learning is the outcome of thinking. And as such, gaining insights into the ways our students think is crucial for us as teachers, allowing us to alter those thinking dispositions that we just saw. Maybe not alter them, but try to influence them in some ways. Okay, so taking away that invisible idea of thinking, because we can't see people thinking, we're making it more visible. We're letting them into the secret of learning by seeing teachers, seeing their classmates explain their thinking, their reasoning behind things. But there are other benefits as well. I'm going to go through these quite quickly. It develops, of course, those thinking and learning abilities. Deeper understanding of content, whether that's a TED talk that they've been watching, whether it's an article that they've read in their course book. It's not just comprehension questions, it's thinking more deeply about what they have read, what they have heard. The research also suggests that because we're involving learners in this process, this cognitive process, it develops greater motivation because it's asking them for their viewpoints, their opinions. So there's a certain amount of autonomy there, which I think is motivating. And that in turn has a positive development on students' attitudes towards learning. They become more enriched, more focused, more positive. And that in turn creates a shift in classroom culture towards a community of enthusiastically engaged thinkers and learners. Really quickly in the chat box, is that something that you want? Do you want your students to be more enthusiastic, to be more engaged in your lessons? Just maybe a quick thumbs up, thumbs down using the reaction buttons. Of course, exactly. Of course we do. So therefore, as teachers, it is our responsibility to do as much as we can to ensure that they are engaged and enthusiastic. And using visible thinking routines is one way of doing that. And ultimately, what all that contributes to is that it facilitates a more inclusive and more communicative classroom. And that is what we all strive for. We are learning English to be able to communicate with it between each other, with people outside of the classroom. It's not just about learning grammar and vocabulary. It's learning how to use it. It's learning how to think in the language, to express our thoughts, views, and opinions. Now, what I should say at this point, though, is that these thinking routines that were developed by Harvard University and Project Zero, they were not designed specifically for the English language classroom. They were developed for arts programs in general. But when I kind of learned about these a few years ago, I kind of got really interested in them and how I could adapt them, how I could use them in my classes with my students. And while there are many which can't be used, or maybe more difficult to implement in the classroom, there are many which can be used by us as teachers to develop communication, creative thinking, and critical thinking as well. So let's look at some ways in which we can actually use them. And I'm going to split this into sort of 3 different areas. We're going to look at, first of all, that kind of pre-reading, pre-topic type routine, an after reading or an end of topic routine, and then also looking at how we can use them with visuals, with images. So let's look at our first one. And the first one is called the 3 whys. Not the 3 wise men, just the 3 whys. And this is a thinking routine that nurtures a disposition to be able to discern the significance, the importance of a topic, of a reading, while at the same time keeping a personal viewpoint, a more local viewpoint, and a more global viewpoint in mind. And certainly what this is doing, this kind of motivates the learners to learn that it has a connection, a meaning to them. So we've got here a unit all about image and identity, taken from Keynote. So a really nice broad topic that students can get their teeth into, right? So we want to ask some questions that relate to them directly. So first of all, the first question is, why might this topic, why might this question matter to me as an individual? So really quickly in the chat box for me, because we don't have time to do breakout rooms, unfortunately. Can you, in the chat box, tell me why the topic of image and identity might be important to you as an individual? And of course, you know, we're in this online environment where we have to do it in chat boxes, but in class, you put them in pairs, you put them into groups. If you've got a longer lesson, of course, you can put them into breakout rooms if you're online. But who's feeling brave? Go on. Why is this topic important to you? Why is your identity important as a Russian from a certain part of Russia? Why is that important? Why is your image important? Oh, that's really good, Nadia. Yeah, being one's true self versus wearing masks. I think it's absolutely vital. I think all the more so in the times of COVID where we have a physical mask on ourselves as well. Yeah, great, Galina, to know, to understand other people better. But also to know yourself better as well, right? I want to know who I am. And certainly teenagers are going through that stage in life where image and identity is incredibly important to them. And maybe they need guidance and help with that. Yeah, great, Olga, to live your own life, not somebody else's. Okay, great. That's about me. We then kind of maybe stretch that a bit more. Why might it matter to the people around me? My family, my friends, my city, my nation. So we all know that different areas of a country, different cities have their own identity. Coming from the south of England, we have a very different identity to the people that come from the Midlands or from the north of England. And that matters to us as who we are. And I'm sure that's true anywhere you are in the world. And of course, that is also a national identity as well. So it's linking to the national identity of who we are. My city identity. How is that important to them? And then finally, we get to the idea that why might it matter to the world? So we're looking at it in a global context. So why is image and identity important to the world? And obviously the real answer here is that, of course, as a world of 198 different countries, everyone has their own identity. Everyone has their own culture. but we have to understand that. And I think all the more so in the world of globalization, where multinationals are taking over the world, and certain places might be losing their cultural identity to an extent. And just a really good example of that is, 25 years ago, I went to Thailand, and it was free of multinational companies and globalization. I went back 10 years ago, and it was full of McDonald's and KFCs and big brands from the United States. And it made me sad because these places were really, really busy, and they're kind of trying to take a bite of another culture, another identity, or trying to forge a new identity for themselves. So exactly, Olga, that topic of intercultural communication is really important. So this 3 whys approach just gets them thinking about a topic on 3 different levels, but all connected to themselves in one way or another. And it's a really great springboard for group discussion and then class discussion. Okay, moving on. The next routine I want to talk about is question starts. And this is a routine that is essentially for creating or helping our students to create thought-provoking questions. Because very often you say, here's a topic we're going to study. What questions do you have about it? And your class just sit there in silence. They don't know what to say or what questions to ask. But by providing them with question starts, it gives them that opportunity to practice developing good questions that do provoke thinking and inquiry into a topic. So you could very well link this to an inquiry-based approach to learning. And of course, it also helps them to brainstorm lots of different types of questions about the topic, with the end goal of getting them to ask deep, interesting questions that get at the complexity and depth of a topic. So here we have a unit all about the Earth, but specifically it's about the environment. And, what questions might you have about that? So we give them the starts to help them. So why is this important to me? What are the reasons X, Y, Z? In the chat box, really quickly, using those question starts, what questions do you have about the environment, climate change, global warming, etc., which is what this unit is all linked to, and sending that photograph is linked to that as well. And you please use the question starts, okay? Because they're there to support you, to help you. Who's feeling brave in the chat box? So of course, once your students have individually brainstorm some questions, in groups brainstorm questions, you open up as a more classroom-based discussion or a larger group discussion. For example, suppose that we all became carbon neutral overnight. How would that affect the impact of global warming? How would life be different if we had never burned fossil fuels? What if we knew what we know now 50 years ago? What if we knew that our actions will never affect the environment? Lovely, Galene. That's a really great question. What is the purpose of the green movement? Thank you, Yelena. Really good questions coming through here. Why is human factor really important in global warming? Lovely, Svetlana. So the content is being produced not by the teacher, but by the students. It's student generated. Therefore, it is automatically more motivating, more engaging, more involving for all of the students. Oh, Nadia, I love that question. Very, very kind of, devil on the shoulder. Suppose all talk of global warming was a scam. That's really getting at the heart of the idea, right? And then also it kind of showcases the fact that there's no right question or a wrong question here. All questions are good questions. So, really nice routine. Another one we can do is called Think, Puzzle, and Explore. And this routine is really best. I mean, you can do it pre-reading or pre-topic, but it activates prior knowledge. It generates ideas and curiosity. And it also sets that stage for deeper inquiry. And it's similar to what you're probably familiar with in terms of a KWL routine, what I know, what I want to know, what I've learned. But it's probably slightly aimed more at older learners or higher teenage learners. So, for example, what do you think you know about this topic? And this is important. It's not what do you know, what do you think you know? Because maybe you actually don't know, or what you think you know isn't right. So this is a reading all about ethical consumption. What do you think you know about ethical consumption? Tell me in the chat box. What do you think you know about ethical consumption? In other words, being green. For example, it might be that the coffee cup that you picked up from your coffee shop this morning is made from recycled cardboard paper. Maybe that it's actually from the coffee beans have been sourced from a farm in Colombia, wherever there is, taking green steps, for example. Okay, issue of recycling, good. Maybe, something I talked to my daughter about when we go to the supermarket, we're picking up the fruit and we're like, well, this fruit is from Morocco. The blueberries are always from Morocco. Why should we be buying blueberries from Morocco? No. Should we be buying kiwi fruit from Portugal? No, not necessarily because of the air miles, the carbon footprint that fruit and vegetable has. But we've got apples that were grown in the UK. Well, that's okay. It's more ethical consumption type things, right? Absolutely could be connected to child labor. Perfect. The idea of ready to pay more for eco-friendly food, etc. So think about what you know about the topic. Then what questions, what puzzles do you have? So what do you want to know about it? So for example, what is the real impact of, I don't know, let's use that food example, having food from, not having food from another country, for example. And then the third one is, it could be done kind of pre-reading, post-reading. What does the topic make you want to explore more of? Maybe you want to explore more, how can I be more ethical in my consumption? How can I be more aware? What can I stop doing? What should I do more of? How can I find out more about those things? So again, it's giving that control to the learners. Okay, a few more pre-routines we've got coming up. One which I'm sure you're all familiar with, think, pair, share. And this routine encourages students to think about something and then to articulate their thoughts. It can be linked to all the previous ones actually. But what it does, it promotes understanding through active reasoning and explanation. Because students are actually listening to and sharing ideas, the routine encourages students to understand multiple perspectives. So here's an article all about nature being good for you. Well, how do you think nature is good for you? First of all, so on their own, students for 1 minute, make a list of things by themselves. How do you think nature is good for you? Well, nature is good for me because it relaxes me. It's fresh air, so it's good for me. It's quiet, it's calming, it's whatever it might be. So they think about those ideas and they then share them with a partner, or that you pair them up in pairs, and then they share their ideas with each other and then with the class. Another activity might be compare other activities that are good for you physically and mentally. How would you rank them 1 to 5 in order of their health benefits? So being in nature, doing exercise, eating healthily, having a good sleep routine, meditation and mindfulness. Which of those do you think is the best for you in terms of health benefits? Really quickly in the chat box. Of course, we can't do the activity properly because we're not physically together or in breakout rooms, but really quickly, what do you think is the best for you? Out of those 5 things, which is the best for you in terms of your health? Okay, thank you. I can't read Russian, so not sure, so their meditation, mindfulness, great. Having good sleep routine. For me, it's all about sleep. If I have a good sleep, everything is happy in the world. If I have a bad sleep, not great. Because if I have good sleep, it means that I feel more positive. It means I might do more exercise. Of course, they're all important, but the idea of a rank order is actually to get students thinking about it, thinking critically, and explaining why. So of course, Olga said having a good sleep routine is useful, it is important, but why? Tell me why. But of course, we don't have time for that today. But in class, it just gets students thinking because it's giving their views, giving their opinions. Okay, moving on really quickly. Another really nice activity I do pre-reading is called Words I Know, Words That I Think I Know, Words I Don't Know. And this is a great pre-teaching vocabulary routine that puts the focus firmly on the students and what they know, rather than what the teacher knows. So we have a list of words, and individually, they have to put the words into the box that is appropriate for them. So words I know, survey, mall, subjects. Words I think I know, relaxation, virtual reality, whatever. Words I don't know, serene, researchers, whatever it might be. So students do that by themselves, thinking about the words on their own. Then once they've sort of completed that, you put them into pairs and they work together. Well, I know the meaning of this word, but you only think you know it, or you don't know it at all. So there's lots of peer teaching going on here, lots of reaffirmation of understanding. Therefore, it's inclusive of all of the students. They're all working initially by themselves, but then together as a class or as a group, and then lastly as a class, which again takes the focus of you as the teacher to do all of the teaching. You are a facilitator most of the time. You're kind of like setting the activity, giving the instructions, but then they are creating the content, creating the ideas, working together. So there's a number of routines we can do: pre-reading, pre-topic. How about post-reading, post-topic? Lots of other things we can do here as well. So first one is called 3, 2, 1. And this routine helps students to reflect on what they have read or what they've listened to, for example, in a TED Talk, on a deeper, but more importantly, more personal level, okay? And I should say that you can change these things around as you like. They're not set in stone. So for example, 3 things I found interesting in the article. So this is not a comprehension question. It's purely your own connection to a text. 2 things I'd like to know more about. So 2 things in the text which kind of interested me, I want to learn more about. Or 1 thing I'd like to fact check. So students on their own, they answer these questions by themselves, and then you put them into pairs, you put them into groups. And you get them talking about the text on a far more personal level and on a deeper level. Because what I found interesting may be different to what you found interesting. The thing that I would like to fact check might be different to the thing you want to fact check. But the purpose is here is I have to explain why. I found this information interesting because. I'd like to know more about this because. I want to fact check this because I'm sure it can't be right, because I'm sure I read it somewhere else before, something different. Like I said, you could mix it up. It could be 3 things I found funny, or 3 things I found surprising, or 3 new words that I learned, or 1 new word that I learned. 1 thing that you would like to ask the author, or 2 things that you're going to tell a friend about from the article. But what it does, it makes a connection, a personal connection to a text, and it takes it beyond just reading comprehension, which is far more engaging, far more purposeful and meaningful to learners than just true, false, not given questions, or gap fill questions, or multiple choice questions. That's kind of testing reading comprehension. This is really testing, not even testing it, it's taking it a step further, making it more personal. And there's another routine that kind of follows a similar pattern called the 4 C's. And this routine provides learners with a structure for a text-based discussion, which is built around making connections, asking questions, identifying key ideas, and then considering application of those ideas. So for example, connections. What connections can you draw between the text and your own life or your other learning? So here we have a text all about caffeine-fueled world, the importance of caffeine and the addiction that we have as humans to caffeine. Well, how does that relate to you as an individual? Just making that personal connection. Challenge. What ideas, what positions or assumptions do you want to challenge or argue with in the text? In other words, what do you disagree with, or what are you kind of questioning? For example, it says in the text that caffeine is the most addictive drug in the world. Really, is that the case? I want to question that. I want to challenge that idea. The 4th C is concepts. What key concept or ideas do you think are important and worth holding onto from the text? In other words, what is the most important thing that you want to take from it? And it might be that, you know what, I should drink less coffee than I do because actually it's not that good for me, for example. But what about the 4th C? What do you think the 4th C might be? Have a guess in the chat box for me. So we've got connections, challenge, concepts. What's the 4th C, do you think? Any guesses? Okay, good. I like, you're not too far from the truth there, Tatiana. It's not creativity, but there's an element to that. Look at that, Nadia. Awesome, you've got the right answer. It is change. What changes in attitude, thinking, or action are suggested by the text, either for you or for others? In other words, how has the text impacted you? What might you do slightly differently next time around? Which is essentially the conclusions for that, Lana. Absolutely. So similar kind of idea. It could have been conclusions. What are you going to take away from that text? Does it change your way of thinking, or does it change your way of actually going to do something? So in this case, it might be, well, I might think twice about how much caffeine I drink every day. Less coffee, less tea, less chocolate, less Coca-Cola, all the good things, right? Anyway, so it's a really nice routine that you could do. Okay, another one really quickly, stop, think, discuss. Again, this just gets students thinking about a topic in more detail. And what I should say at this point is you would not do all of these routines, okay? You just do one of them. So the 3, 2, 1, 4 C's, or stop, think, discuss. So stop, think, discuss. Again, just personalizing what they've read. What did I find most interesting? Why? Did anything surprise or shock me? Why? Did anything worry or concern me? Why? Did anything make me stop and think? Why? Was there anything I strongly agreed or disagreed with? Why? Has my view or opinion changed from this reading or from this TED Talk? Why? This is a bit more structured than the 4 C's because it's very specific questions, which students might find more easy to kind of access and to answer. But essentially it's doing the same kind of thing, but in a different way. So this one is all about the digital divide and how we can overcome it or not. The final routine I want to talk about really quickly with reading is this idea of reflecting on reading, developing metacognitive strategies. In other words, thinking about how we do something. So, for example, what questions could we ask to help develop those metacognitive strategies? In other words, that idea of conscious learning. What processes are taking place? And I think as a reflection on the process they go through, it can be really, really useful at the end of a reading lesson. Well, how did you read it successfully? What strategies did you use? So these are the kind of questions we could get students to ask themselves. You know, what didn't I understand? Well, why didn't I understand it? How did I decide what to read closely and what to ignore? How did X strategy help me complete the reading? Was it skimming? Was it scanning? Was it inferring from context, etc.? What was my experience of using that strategy? Was it positive? Was it kind of in the middle or not? And then the final one I want to talk about is this idea of, at the end of a unit or at the end of a reading, I used to think, now I think. So coming at this unit we had on image and identity. So throughout the whole unit, you're studying this. You've got a TED talk all about it. You've got a reading all about it. You've got a discussion and a listening all about it. And the purpose of this routine is to get students to reflect on their thinking and about a certain topic or an issue, and to explore maybe how and why that thinking has changed. So it can be useful in consolidating new learning as students identify their new understandings, their new opinions, and their new beliefs. And by examining and explaining how and why their thinking has changed, students are developing that reasoning ability, recognizing relationships between things. So, you know, maybe I used to think this about image and identity. Now I think, wow, it's actually really, really important, or more important than I thought it was, in who we are as people, who we are as a society. Okay, time is unfortunately up, which means I have to skip a couple of slides, which I apologize for. So I'm sorry about this, but what we can do, we can actually sort of share this with you at a later date. That's not a problem. So I just want to finish with a quote from Albert Einstein, who knew a thing or two about thinking. And it's this: education is not learning the facts, but training the brain to think. So incorporating visible thinking routines on top of what we are already doing is really, really important, because that really is the end goal of education. Yes, we are teaching the English language, grammar, vocabulary, etc. But we also have that position whereby we can develop other skills as well, and to develop knowledge. And, you know, hopefully the routines we've seen today, you think, okay, great, I can really use that with this class or this class. Lots of stuff we can do pre-reading, pre-topic, and post-reading, post-topic as well. So thank you ever so much for your time, your patience, your attention. It's been a pleasure being able to talk to you today. For more information about what we've been talking about, or anything National Geographic related actually, you can check out other webinars and our In Focus blog as well. But specifically in regards to the visible thinking routines, if you go to the Project Zero website, so just type in Project Zero to your internet browser and it will come up with the key page for that. And you can download all of the worksheets for the thinking routines on that page, okay? So Project Zero, everything you need, everything we talked about today is there. Okay, I'm gonna hand back to Evgeny.
Okay, Alex, thank you very much. Yeah, really,
so much,
amazing talk. Yes, right. Lots of visualization techniques, right, and ideas. Okay. So, dear colleagues, if you have some quick questions to Alex, you can type them in the chat right now. Okay, type them in the chat.
Please do.
And Alex, right? Let's see. If not now, you can just type them in the chat and we will readdress it to Alex. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Evgeny. Yeah, absolutely. Be more than happy. You know, this is a topic I'm really passionate about since I kind of first discovered it, like I said, a few years ago. It's got such great implications for us in our classrooms in terms of a communicative approach and, you know, just engaging learners in their own learning.
Okay. Alex, maybe a couple of words to teachers because they're supposed to have their vacations soon, right? Maybe for summer development, some I would say, some inspiring words that we all need to develop and stuff like
Well,
that?
absolutely. I mean, even I am constantly developing, constantly learning new things. I think I read a really great quote recently that the teachers are like sharks. If you stop moving, you die. So as teachers, because sharks, they have to, through their gills, they have to keep moving, otherwise they die. So that's how we should perceive ourselves as teachers and our professional development. If we don't keep improving, we're just going to stagnate and not become the best versions of ourselves that we can be. So we always need to be finding new things, new ideas that we can be incorporating into our classes. So I challenge you, therefore, to find out more about these visible thinking routines from the Project Zero website. Look at the other one. There's like about 80 different routines on the website. So go through them. Try and find something you think, okay, that might work really well in my class. And if it might not work well in your class, you might have a colleague who it might work well for in their subject. So that's my challenge for you in your upcoming summer break.
Many thanks, Alex. Yeah, many.
That's okay, Jamie.
Okay. Thank you. So our next speaker is Galina. So Galina Sharonova, are you here? Galina, are you here?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, can you see me well? Can you hear me well?
Yeah, Galina is a senior methodologist at Onara company. And today she's going to give a talk about a magic wand, which can make you a real teaching magician. Okay, what's in a... So there is an intrigue in your title, I suppose.
Yeah, thank you.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Evgeny. Thank you, Alex. And you know, Alex, after your comments about the sharks, I thought that I must have had a different name for my session. So, well, yeah, so good afternoon. I'm very happy to see you all. And so today is our final session as part of this big professional development program. Summer is coming and it's really cool. Like Alex said, we anyway need to move and we need to develop professionally. And today we will be talking about this. So the aims of my short session today are the following. So we are going to identify teachers' competences. Yeah, what makes teachers good teachers, what makes teachers teachers. Yeah, and then also we're going to touch upon professional paths which teachers can follow very, very briefly. Then also on the agenda, there is one more thing to discover, maybe rediscover the ways to develop professionally. Yeah, like, well, how we can do this. And one more important thing, which again refers back to the idea of sharks or, well, magicians. Well, the ways a teacher can self-develop. So we'll discuss some precise ideas. Well, then we will also talk about teachers' books. No, well, there is a spoiler for you. Teachers' books are our magic wands. And well, we will see, practically speaking, how teachers' books can be used as part of self-development. So then, as promised here, the first thing to discuss is teachers' competences. So in the chat box, can you please share your ideas, your concepts? Yeah, so what teaching qualities can you outline? So what makes a teacher teacher? I would like to hear from you. So for some patience. Okay, good. Knowledge. Thank you. Well, anything else? One more idea. Okay, so teachers, flexible, creative, enthusiastic, inspiring. Yeah, so again, the idea of creativity, That's great, thank you. Yeah, so let's have a look at the slide. Yeah, so first, yeah, awareness of the subject. This is what you mentioned. We as teachers, of course, need to know what we teach. In particular, we need to know key terminology, key concepts, key ideas in, well, linguistics and methodology and so on. Also, you know, in order to speak the same language with our colleagues and so on. Then, of course, we need to be aware of the variety of teaching approaches and the ways to implement them. In other words, we need to know, well, what teaching trends there are. And of course, to get well, the best practices from them so that you develop your own individual teaching style. So then also you need to know who you teach. Yes, your learners, their learner types, learning strategies, their needs, preferences, and so on. Also, like having, like, when you know what you teach, you know the subject, then you should be able to consolidate it all and plan your lessons effectively. Yeah, or in other words, how to get the most of what you have. So then what is also important is a teacher should be aware of the ways to deal with classroom management. Yeah, and so how to deal with expected and unexpected situations. Unexpected situations can be really various. Well, and last but definitely not least, a teacher should be aware of the ways to self-care and have a work-life balance. Yes, so if we are resourceful, then we are able to learn, to develop, to plan good lessons, to conduct good lessons. Yeah. So here we don't have, well, the ideas, some ideas from the chat box, in particular, personality, charisma. Yeah, sure. These are significant features of teachers, especially like, well, good teachers, if good is the appropriate word here. Well, then, like, well, this is a kind of a teacher's portfolio. And then we need to know where we can move. Yeah, and there is a choice of professional paths. And again, I would like to hear from you. Can you please write the ideas, like what could be the options for for professional development, not necessarily self-development. So I can share, well, the first idea here. Get international teaching qualifications. Yeah, continuous professional development. Yeah, thank you, Olga. Yeah, so anything else? Okay, yeah, so taking exams, so Natalia, thank you for your idea. Yeah, and the idea of CPD is really great, and it's, well, an umbrella, actually, word for many other options. Yeah, so, well, like professional path, what you can do, what are the options in general, options for the summer. Yeah, so yeah, you can get international qualifications, as I told you. Yeah, well, there is quite a big choice of them. Then also the idea which was mentioned in the chat box, you can take an international exam, like proficiency exam, to prove that you have a certain level of language awareness. So then also one more idea, like how you can develop professionally. You can become an academic manager, be part of a big team in a big or relatively big school. Then you can become a methodologist, and you will be able to, well, to see how all the methods, techniques work in reality, and will be able to, well, plan, design interesting and effective lessons. Okay, yeah, Olga, thank you, yeah, for mentioning this. Being part of international teaching community, it's always fantastic, and yeah, experience exchange with teachers from other countries. Yeah, we can't underestimate this opportunity, that's for sure. And that's why actually it's a good idea to get your international qualification abroad as an option. Yeah, again, to be part of this big international community. Then some of us may choose to go freelance and also to find our niche. Yeah, so maybe you love teaching young learners, maybe teaching very young learners is your passion, or on the other hand, like English for specific purposes, business English and academic English are your areas of interest. Yeah, so then again, it can help you develop professionally. And again, you may switch to something new, something different anytime you want. So blogging, now it's getting more and more popular. We have more and more teachers who are eager to share their ideas. And again, they help create our global ELT community. Mentoring is the other option to develop. I find it really great, because when you mentor teachers, when you help them well, choose their career path, outline their well, ways to develop professionally, help them solve their problems, you need to develop. Yeah, so you are a real shark, I would say. And then, yeah, so teacher training can be one more interesting option. Yeah, so like professional path to develop your career, like, well, to find the options in teaching in your sphere. So then we see the ways, but we need to know how we can do this. Yeah, and I'm sorry if it disturbs you, like my neighbors only today have decided that they want to drill something and do rebuild or whatever. So yeah, and then let's see like how we can do this. Yeah, how to develop professionally, the ways. Yeah, so we may attend events, seminars, and now I'm very happy that we are slowly getting back to our previous normal. There are some offline events which we can attend and again become part of our big ELT community. Yeah, so then do some courses. Yeah, maybe language upgrade. Yeah, again, we may decide that we need to, well, brush up our English. Then Maria mentioned learning a new language. Yeah, that's a fantastic idea. Or maybe get back to the language that you learned when you were a university student. That's actually my way. I used to speak German, now I don't speak it at all. Yeah, so do courses on methodology, maybe do courses like on the topics which are different. I mean that they different from what you do. Yeah, nowadays, for example, psychology courses are getting more and more popular. Yeah, and then also there can be courses which can help you balance your life. Yeah, which we mentioned in the previous slide. Yeah, like painting courses. Then, yeah, there's also one more interesting idea. Yeah, courses on specific issues like dyslexia, online teaching, and so on. Yeah, like, well, the more we learn, the more we know. Then get international qualifications. Yeah, get a degree. And yeah, my personal recommendation is to do it somewhere abroad, again, to see how people work, like what sort of ELT community they have all around the world. So then one more good thing is to have a study buddy, or just to have a buddy. And this is a person who can help you, who can maybe sometimes coach you, can ask you very good questions to help you like identify, decide which way to go. And if you are learning something new, again, study buddy can support you. So then do peer observations. Yeah, this is also what Alex mentioned. And especially now in the summer when we do not have a lot of teaching hours, that can be possible. And when you do peer observations, when you observe your colleagues, don't do it just for the sake of observing them. Yeah, just steal some ideas, steal best practice. And then this way you can learn many new things. Find a mentor or maybe consult an academic manager if you work in a big school who can observe you, give you feedback, and help you with your a kind of an action plan for the future. So and then these are the options which can again help you develop professionally, but here somebody else is involved. Yeah, and what do you think? What can be the options for pure self-development? Yeah, so something a little bit more specific. Oh yes, Alex, thank you for mentioning webinars run by NGL. Yeah. Yeah, well, this is what I have here. Read professional literature, blogs, articles, books. Yeah, so this is what you can do on your own. Dedicate as much time as you have and do it anytime you want and then anytime you have. Yeah, then again, watch seminars and webinars, recorded webinars and seminars anytime you can. Then anything else to add here? Yeah, I would like to hear from you. So discover interests of your students. Oh yes, discover and share if possible. Okay, good. Learn about new online technologies. Yeah, that's now a very important skill. Yeah. Okay. Well, then, one more technique for you, which is very helpful, and it does help you self-develop. It's recording yourself. Yeah, recording your lessons, video recording your lessons. Then, like in this case, you don't need anybody, just yourself, and you will be able to give self-feedback. Then reflecting on your lessons can help, especially when you prepare your lesson plan, then compare it with your performance. Yeah, and it's a kind of keeping a diary. Yeah, and ask feedback from students. Yeah, so they again help you find out your areas for improvement. And last but not least, so this is making use of the teacher's books that you have. Yeah, so it's actually this magic wand which can help you work your magic, become magicians, and again develop professionally on your own. Yeah, so I hope that you all use teachers' books and you know very well how they are organized. In the chat box, can you please write what is there in a teacher's book? Like what sort of information or sections you can find there? Yeah, thank you, Alex. So NGL teachers' books are amazing. They all have teacher development sections in them. Yeah, full of useful, practical ideas. That's great. Yeah, teacher's book is a guide. Yes, you can just, it can accompany you every time, so you can even like, follow it completely. Okay, one more idea, like how it is organized, what you can find in a teacher's book. Okay, let me share my thoughts with you. They have answer keys that students like to use. Depends, yeah. Sometimes, answers go separately. Notes on the lexes of the unit, general concept, warm up, and recommendations to all stages. Yeah, thank you, ladies. So then, yeah, to begin with, teachers' books have a strategic description of the syllabus. Yeah, well, in other words, scope and sequence, like what you're going to teach, when, and so on. Then also there are notes on lesson aims and unit aims. Again, it can help you track your students' progress, track their result, and so on. Then notes on procedures. Yeah, this is what Svetlana, you mentioned here. Yeah, so what you're gonna do, how you're gonna do, how to make use of all the tasks and activities that your students' books provide. Then again, yes, there is a clear description of the flow of their stages and material, and you can actually track the logic of the stages. So then answer keys, yeah, and this is like not the top priority. And then professional development boxes. Yeah, this is what Alex mentioned actually. Ideas on how to do things in an alternative way. And this is also a good tool for you to reflect and to maybe try out new things. Yeah, to make your further step in your professional development. Then cross-reference to corresponding or new areas of teaching, or maybe just new areas related to any sphere. And last but not least, yeah, language awareness boxes. Yeah, well, they like students' books give you an opportunity to again discover the language that you're teaching. So let's have a look at how it works in reality. I'm going to provide you some examples, some ideas. So like boxes on professional development. You can see 2 extracts from 2 NGL books, Life, 2nd edition, upper intermediate teacher's book. Well, this is the course for adults. And Close Up B1 Plus teacher's book. This course book is for teenagers. Yeah, and this course book helps both hone your language skills and prepare for international exams. Yeah, and as you see, like in these boxes, they give you some ideas what you can do. Yeah, so how you can use context, for example, to show meaning. Not just that it's important, but why, how, and so on, giving you some ready-made ideas and a tool. So then what else? Notes on the material you teach. And here we can see extracts from the Keynote Advanced Teachers books and Life 2nd edition Upper Intermediate Teachers book. Yeah, so for example, yeah, teaching tips, types of collocations, yeah, what you actually deal with, what you teach, word creation, how we can create new words, like some ideas on word formation and so on. You have vocabulary notes. Yeah, the ways the verb get works. And what I also liked a lot, it's like background information on the topic of your lesson, hormones in this particular case. Yeah, like when you teach this, like you may have a text to read or an audio to listen to. And if you don't know what you're actually teaching, then you're not in a very advantageous situation. Yeah, so here briefly you can learn about it, and who knows, maybe it will become your future hobby, your new interest, and so on. So then also the ways you can adapt materials, so you can expand on the materials and deal with fast finishers. You know, especially, well, dealing with fast finishers is a very important part of lesson and classroom management, especially when you teach teenagers. And here you can see extracts from the Perspectives Intermediate Teacher's book. Yeah, so what to do if you have fast finishers? Yeah, like how you can deal with what you have without, you know, copying extra materials and or being panicky about that. Like, well, ready-made solutions. Optional steps, and the optional step here provides some ideas for some kind of project work, yeah, or some research. Extension, yeah, what if your students have gone through the lesson stages pretty quickly and successfully? Yeah, what can you do? What are your options? Again, not to get panicky, not to, well, switch to maybe the material of new lesson. You have some ready-made ideas, ready-made solutions. Yeah, well, what do you think? Is it really important to have such sections in the teacher's books? Do you find it useful? Yeah, the ways to, well, deal with fast finishers, the ways to, well, do things differently. Yeah, or maybe like we had it on the previous slide, like some ideas on professional development. Oh yeah, sure. Okay, yeah, I also find it very, very important. Yeah, okay, and also one more interesting thing. You know that all the books, yes, they are not, you know, produced by, well, some unknown people or something artificial. Yeah, so authors write books. Yeah, and then it's always great if you can see what authors meant when they were designing, writing this or that book. Yeah, and of course, all the authors are usually practicing teachers or teacher trainers, and they have so much to share with the teachers. Yeah, and well, then there can be some, well, videos or webinars, blogs, which are run by authors or writers. I can't but share, well, this wonderful extract. The smiling woman here is the author of one of our best-selling series for primary learners, Our World. And there is the whole website dedicated to professional development. So this smiling woman, well, her name is Joan Kangxing, and there are recorded very short videos. She is recorded there, and in her videos, she tells teachers how they can introduce new grammar, new vocabulary, how you can practice it, what to do with songs and so on. Yeah, these videos are short, but very, very informative. And many other authors run their own blogs and they share their ideas for free. Yeah, so again, like summer is coming, you have pretty much time well to develop professionally and to well learn new things on your own. And there is a very good remark, yeah, by Maria, that magic requires hard work and a great deal of constant trying and training, lifelong. Yeah, so trying, experimenting, training, maybe failing, then trying it again, learning new things. Well, this is the way you can develop professionally and become real magicians. Yeah, and well, just last but not least, my message to you is that it's really great if you have people who can help you develop professionally. Yeah, it's very good if you are a member or part of the ELT community. It's really great if in your workplace you have this opportunity to share your ideas, your experience with your colleagues. Yeah, but there are also options which can help you self-develop. And one of the tools, magic tools, is teachers' books. So that's why next time when you choose a new course, now you know what to look for in the whole course spec. Yeah, so the resourceful teacher's book, which can help you. So thank you very much. If you have questions, comments, I will be very happy to hear from you, either in the chat box or on this slide. You can see the ways you can get in touch with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Galina. So, dear colleagues, if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. Thank you for your really useful and I would say inspiring talk, because the ways you just mentioned today are nice ways how to develop even this summer, starting this summer. Yeah.
Yes.
To postpone it. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, dear colleagues, and now it's my turn to give my talk. For those who haven't seen me before, my name is Evgeny Usachov. I work for the Moscow International Academy. I'm the head of the teacher training department in the academy. So my talk today will be dedicated to professional development as well. Let me share my screen with you. Just a second. One moment. Okay. Can you see my screen? If so, please put a plus in the chat. Okay, thank you. So in my brief talk today, we'll just have a look at different ways as an addition to Galina's talk, the ways we can develop professionally. And as well, I will be covering the issue of 5 circles of TPD, teacher professional development. So, and my talk is based on the book by Duncan Ford. You may have heard his name, and he wrote a wonderful book which is called The Developing Teacher. So further in my talk, I'll give you some examples of practical activities you can do to develop professionally. First of all, a few definitions, very brief definition of what development is. So it can be, say, the gradual growth or formation of something. It can be the process or result of making a basic design gradually and making it more advanced. And I like the next definition, an event or incident which has recently happened and is likely to have an effect on the present situation, in which in our, say, situation, teaching situation. So it's also a kind of development. Typically, we can develop in 3 different ways. The first way is we can change without noticing that we have changed. It happens sometimes, we're changing, but we don't notice that. So the second way we can change by making things happen. So we change on purpose. For instance, we change our teaching style, or we change course books, whatever. And we can change the result of things that happen to us. For instance, working for a language school or attending webinars or teacher development seminars, stuff like that. So as a result of this participation and involvement, we do change. So actually we can change in all three ways, right? Well, briefly in the chat, can you just put up your ideas why, as English teachers, we need teacher development? So just maybe brief ideas, right, on your mind. So why do we need to change? Why do we need to develop? Okay, please type something in the chat. Okay, while you are typing, okay, all teachers need it. Not only English language teachers, yes. Some update of terminology. Life is changing, right? Not to die. And I fully agree with Alex, who said, yes, we are like sharks. We need constantly move, right? To be competent, I would say, to be on the same wavelength with our students, right? Avoid stagnation. Okay, great, thanks. So let's move on. And how we develop? Actually, it refers to 4 areas. We can develop our skills, say teaching skills, some other skills, right? And that's why we can do something, give instructions more clear. We have teaching skills to be developed. As well as knowledge, we can learn something new about methodology, new tools. So maybe some theories about generation Z and the next generation, which equips what with this knowledge, and we know how to deal with this digital native students, for instance. Then it's our awareness. So we learn how to use, for instance, to use eyes and ears better to what happened when we teach, right? Again, it's a sort of perception, okay. And of course, we can develop our attitude, right? For instance, we can learn about our assumptions about teaching, learning, ourselves, our learners, and maybe our culture, okay? Different areas for development. On the next slide, you see 4 general reasons that stop us from development. For instance, there are these 4 you see on the slide. First, attitudes. First of all, it may be our own attitude that sometimes we're a bit lazy or overloaded with our teaching, things like that, or maybe some paperwork, and yes, and that's why we don't have this mood just to develop, right? The second obstacle may be our colleagues, depending on your school you work for, the attitude to develop may be different. So in some schools, I mean, by schools, I mean all the educational establishments, universities, language schools, whatever. And in some schools, there are, I suppose you agree with me, there are colleagues who don't want to develop at all. So they are in their comfort zone, and they make sort of influence on our circle, right? It may be an obstacle. Stress, being under constant stress of providing exams, getting ready for exams, or maybe stressful atmosphere in the working place may also stop our development. And the school's policies, for instance, in some schools, the seminars or teacher development programs they offer, maybe they are not updated, not up to date, and that's why it may also kill the sort of desire to develop. Okay, if you have something else on your mind, please type in the chat what stops us from development. Okay, speaking about the core part of my talk, these 5 circles of development, you can see them on the right. So there are 5 circles. First, it's ours. So in the inner circle, it's you as a teacher, right? And mostly if we speak about our development, we can think about reading professional literature, reflection on what we do, and maybe self-assessment, things like that. We'll see later in the talk what can be done in this direction. The second circle is you and your students. Again, it's about communication, providing lessons for students, and more importantly, getting feedback from them on our teaching and trying something new with them. Okay, it may be a new project, so a new approach to teaching. And it's vital to get this sort of feedback to understand we're on the right track. And for instance, if we stop and think how often we ask our students for feedback, so we understand it happens regularly, or maybe it happens once in a while. So that's why we can move in this direction. The third one, the third circle is called you and your school. And your colleagues, sorry, you and your colleagues. And again, in this circle, it's very important for us to have such activities as peer observation, team teaching, and maybe staff room support. Okay, again, there will be some activities later on I'll share with you. Then you and your school. Of course, there are teachers who are freelancers and work individually, but many of us work for companies, and that's why it's very important to develop in this field as well, taking part in teachers' meetings or carrying out school projects or just interaction with the school or university management. It also gives us a nice chance to develop. And last but not least is you and your profession, right? It's I suppose the widest circle. In this regard, we can develop by attending and presenting at different conferences, providing workshops, or being a member of a professional community. So, and for this point, ONARA and Moscow International Academy, so we're trying hard to provide you this opportunity to be a part of such activities. Okay. As for the steps, speaking about the steps to develop or development, better say, there are 2 perspectives, I would say. The first perspective is the kind of development we seek out. We, in this regard, we act teachers as hunters. For instance, we would like to attend a particular seminar, take part in a project, and it's us who decides what is interesting for us. So we act as hunters. On the other hand, we can develop when development is thrust upon us. So we act teachers as hunted. For instance, we're speaking about language schools, universities, things like that. When we participate in this sort of development programs, and there are some expectations of these activities, I would say. Right. Okay, and now let's have a look at this interesting slide, which actually reflects developmental impact. So you see the activities on the slide, which has some kind of influence on our development. So you see some of them which are on the left, which so not so influential, I would say, such as on the one hand, training workshops, reading, knowledge transfer, professional setting, and on the other hand, those on the right make a bigger impact. For instance, development in job or experience-based development, things like that. So ideally, we have to balance that. Yes. Okay. So some practical activities which I actually have taken from this wonderful book, The Developing Teacher. For the first circle, as you as a teacher, we can just go through this professional checklist and see what we have done or haven't done, for instance, and give it a particular score, right? It's like a checklist. So, for instance, if we have worked on our time management skills or reflected on our own teaching, or maybe learned another language or kept the teaching diary, again, it gives us an idea what we have already done in this direction, speaking about our personal development as teachers, and which areas maybe just we may focus on, right? Okay. Another interesting activity which I particularly like, and in our teacher training programs we did it. It's an activity called "Why I Am a Teacher," right? So, and it helps to bring to mind many good reasons why we are teachers, and compare teaching with some kind of other job. For instance, for each of the statements, we put a tick in the teaching column of the so-called pro forma below. If it's true for us, okay, we can read, we can add some other reasons. For instance, me and my job. So I'm a teacher because I get a sense of satisfaction from helping people progress, or I like the variety in the job, or I enjoy working with my colleagues. So, or I have fun at work. Okay, and at step number 2, we just count up our ticks, and if we have at least 6, I suppose it's a good result. Okay, so if we are still not convinced, you know, sometimes we have a sort of burnout and would like to change our career, things like that. The good activity which I like, imagine you weren't a teacher, what would you be? Okay, and you return to the checklist and repeat the exercise for a new job for you. And if your new job gets more points than the teaching job, right, you may think about changing the job, all right, or maybe switching into different area of teaching. Okay, so another activity which I also find kind of insightful and reflective, decide what color teacher you are. You have these four areas which just may give you an idea what kind of brain, what kind of color your brain is. For instance, blue, green, yellow, red, and you see a kind of description, right? For instance, if you're supposed to have a blue brain color, which is rational, you're logical and analytical, you like to get straight to the point, you listen attentively, and you are at the same time quite realistic, independent, and you may appear distant and arrogant to some people. So, and your favorite question is why? And you see on the other areas, there are questions, there are descriptions of other types of brains or colors. And you need to find the balance. So you can, for instance, you can give 5 stars, up to 5 stars to each area, and decide what's your dominant color, for instance, and then meet your colleague and discuss what sort of development program may be relevant to you. Okay, it also works well. Speaking about the next, say, circle, you and your students, again, there is a checklist of what you've been doing, and so you can again give a score to each point. For instance, have you made some new material, or have you got feedback from your students, or have you talked to your students socially, things like that, or have you got your students to teach you anything, or something, better say something, right? Again, it's a nice starting point to improve not only teaching and relationships with your students as well. And speaking about the feedback, as I said earlier, feedback from students in this circle is really important. There is an activity which is called 4 fast feedback formats. So you can ask them questions, how are you feeling? For example, a certain stage of a lesson, you ask them, and students are supposed to make notes, and then you discuss them, right? Or second, it's called hot feedback. On the other hand, there is a cool feedback. What can you remember? For instance, at the end of the lesson, you can ask them what they remembered and what was that, things like that. Or feedback on learning, what did you learn today? I suppose most of you do this activity. For instance, if it refers to new vocabulary items or grammar items, just name 3 items you remembered well, yeah, and then you can put them in pairs to discuss their most memorable moments of the lesson. And feedback on fun may start with the question, what did you like best today in the lesson? And again, they give you a feedback, so some sort of activities. Speaking about the third circle, you and your school, again, you can do an activity like this, which is called a good school. There's a question behind that, what makes a good work environment. So you do it first individually, and then you discuss it with your colleagues, and you see a list of features of a good school. First, you may have your own vision, what a good school is. Personally, in the list here, trust, mutual respect, clear communication, feedback, how you're doing, fun, attractive environment. Again, you can add some other points and discuss. Okay, it may be within the school, if the school policy supports this kind of initiatives, it may give the management of the school more idea what teachers think about that. So some other activities here, you can see Be My Guest. For instance, you can invite another teacher to act as a learner in your group you teach, or Try Before You Buy activity. That means that you test a teaching activity with a colleague before you do it in class. So you ask your colleague just to actually you sell your activity to your colleague, right? That's why it's called Try Before You Buy. All right. In terms of professional development, you remember the fifth circle is you and your profession. It's again a checklist for in this field. I would say you may just look back and see what conferences you have attended. So have you been a member of a kind of community, or have you led any workshop things, or maybe written a book? Okay. So, and again, an activity when you attend a kind of seminar or conference, whatever, you may act as a conference reporter. Again, it helps you to develop. For instance, you find a conference you'd like to attend before the conference. So you prepare a proposal, for instance, for your director of studies. You outline the benefits of your going to the conference and all the good outcomes that you can get. And then when you are at the conference, you take notes, make contacts, collect free materials, and then you get back to your school and share with your colleagues information about the event and things like that. So as you see, these are just some examples of the ways we can develop for particular circle. So here is the book I mentioned. It's Delta Publishing series. And the book is called The Developing Teacher. Lots and lots of practical activities. So which I personally already implement in our teaching programs. Before getting to questions, here are my contacts. As I said earlier, I work for the Moscow International Academy. And we also, as well as Galina said, we also offer some programs, teacher training programs, and in the summertime. So we've got the updated website, which is www.i-mil.ru. And there is an email. So about this opportunities. So, and one more thing, I'd like to finish my talk with good news. Moscow International Academy and Onara, we are preparing a competition it is going to be a competition for teachers, and the prize for the winners will be not just a kind of book and sort of material. Actually, Moscow International Academy has a certain number of budget places for master programs, and the winners of the competition will be granted these budget places in our on our master programs. So in the field of study is teaching foreign, and so actually it's called modern approaches to teaching foreign languages. So don't miss the information about that. We're just preparing this information. As soon as we get all the all their terms and conditions about this wonderful initiative, we'll inform you, right, Galina?
Yes. We're working on it, and we will announce everything just a little bit later. Yeah, just keep in touch.
Okay. Thank you very much. If you have any other questions, so don't hesitate to ask them. Thank you very much for participating in this particular webinar, for participation in our joint program, and just for those who haven't got information about the tasks for our joint program. Yes, so don't hesitate to give me a message. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Galina. Thank you, Alex. And have a nice summer, developing summer. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.